Okay, welcome everyone. We're just going to let everyone kind of flow in here, whether it's morning or afternoon for you. Hope you've been having a good day, and we're excited to talk a little bit about our politics today. Whilst we wait for everyone to filter in here, just a couple of housekeeping things. We have a chat function, so feel free to post in there. If you want to say where you're calling in from, that's great. And then there's also a Q&A function as well. That's the little box with the question mark in it. We're going to have time for Q&A after we've run through our kind of presentation. But feel free to post questions as they come up at any time, and we'll be able to sort of collate them and then answer those questions towards the end of the session as well.
Looks like it is morning and afternoon for people.
Yeah, we've got a good swath of people from all over. That's great. If anyone wants to, our usual kind of conserve icebreaker question is, if you were a kind of pasta, what pasta would you be? I've never kind of figured out what my answer to this question is, but it resonates with some people, and some people are like, "What are you talking about?" But if you feel like you're a particular kind of pasta, you can also post that in as well.
And that's for the American translation, that's pasta. Sorry, James.
That's fine.
An egg noodle. I love that. It's the funniest part is the rationale why you pick that.
Yeah.
Shall we?
Yeah, I think let's get this party started. So yeah, thank you everyone for joining us. Just a couple of brief intros. So I'm Dave. I'm the CEO of Conserv. As some of you know, my background is in product development and analytics. So we're actually talking about a topic that is near and dear to my heart. And I'm joined by Melissa. And Melissa, do you want to give a brief intro as well?
Yeah, hi everyone. My name is Melissa King. I am the VP of Customer Experience at Conserv, but I'm also a conservator specializing in preventive conservation. And my role at Conserv has largely been on the customer support, success, and product development side of things. Okay.
Excellent. So just a brief kind of agenda for what we'll cover today. First off, we actually want to talk a little bit about our product development process and kind of how we came to this design and approach for analytics. We talk often in passing about the fact that we really value feedback from our community, how we design with input from the folks that use Conserv and from you all. But we don't often talk about much about the specifics and what we mean when we say that. And so we felt like this was a good opportunity to show you the actual process we went through and how we came to the decisions that we came to with this new version of analytics. So we'll do a little bit of inside baseball on that. And then Melissa is going to walk through the new analytics, some of the new functionality, how to think about different things. and then maybe some of like the features that you might not immediately see that we feel like are really powerful. And then finally, we'll have that time for Q&A with the rest of the time that we have. So once again, feel free to throw questions in as they come up for you, and then we'll tackle them at the end. So first off, why did we design a new version of analytics? You all will have seen we've had this kind of tab at the bottom of the screen to switch back and forth for a while now. There's really three reasons. The first reason is functional. We wanted to enable some capabilities that were just really hard to build based on how the old version of analytics was designed. We had some really common requests like the ability to graph multiple sensors and environmental parameters at one time. And that was just hard to do with how the old analytics was architected. The second was sort of non-functional reasons, which is really around reliability and performance. After multiple years of iterating and developing the analytics experience, one of the things that happens over time with products is they kind of become a little bit bloated, and the system just wasn't quite as performant as we wanted it to be. And so that also prompted us to sort of redesign the experience to make it leaner and meaner, if you will. And then we also wanted to look ahead to the future and rebuilding the experience based on everything that we have learned over multiple years is ultimately going to enable us to add new functionality more quickly. And so we're really excited, not just about what we're talking about today, but about some of the things that we have in the pipeline. And you'll start to see new things cropping up at a much faster pace now that we have this kind of foundation in place. So yeah, now I'll talk a little bit about the process that we used. And so, as with a lot of the things that we do, we kind of had an iterative process that went through multiple rounds of feedback. The first thing is that we are always capturing feedback on an ongoing basis. So whether you're submitting a support ticket to our support team, and there's something in your question that prompts us to say like, well, actually we could maybe make the experience a little bit better in terms of design. We capture all those things, and then if people bring up ideas on calls and so on, we're always capturing all of those things. And what that allows us to do is answer the question of like, what should we be paying attention to, and what questions should we be asking about how we can deliver a better experience. And then after we've done that ongoing feedback, in this particular case, we formed what we call a working group. And so this is a group of folks that use Conserv, customers of ours. And we worked really deeply with that group on a couple of things. The first thing we had each member of that working group do was what we call a friction audit. So basically recording their screen as they used Conserv, and just had them talk aloud about anything that wasn't kind of perfect, little frustrations with the experience and that sort of thing. That gave us a really good foundation to sort of see like, okay, where is the experience not working? Another thing we did was called a card sort exercise. And this is where we took all of the different terminology that is on that screen, everything from show dots to levels, to temperature and humidity. And we had everyone group those terms together in a way that made sense to them. And we used that to inform how we decided where different things were placed on the screen. And so those of you that have used the old version of the analytics page and the new will notice that some of the things have moved around on the screen, and that was based on these card sorting exercises. And then finally, we just had everyone rank the different features and like what's most important, and that helped us prioritize what we focused on as well. Then we released a version of the product, and this is where we created these kind of two versions of the experience, and that allowed us to see like what what people liked and didn't like when comparing the two experiences. And again, those of you that have tried both will know that in the earliest version of this, there were lots of features that were in the old version that we hadn't moved over to the new version. And that was because we wanted to get something out early so that we could iterate on it, and really see how people used the analytics experience in the real world. So this kind of helped us answer the questions of like, what are the gaps? How do people actually use this piece of software, not just in theory, but in practice? And then finally, as we got into the sort of the end game of at least this version of analytics, we had what we called rapid feedback sessions. So over the course of 2 days, we spoke with, I think it was almost 20 different people who signed up for a session with me and one of our engineers, Brian, and we talked through maybe use cases, ways they use Conserv that we hadn't really considered in the new design. We found areas where maybe the user experience was not as intuitive as we wanted it to be. And this kind of really helped us answer the question of like, what have we overlooked? And what kind of polish can we put on the experience to make it really good before bringing it live? And I've kind of put this as a linear process. This really is a circle. So this is the end of the beginning for this new version of analytics, and we're obviously going to keep iterating on it. But this got us to the point where we are now, where we've released this new version, and we're excited to show it to you. So if you have any questions about this, I know this is we're really here to see the actual functionality, but would love to answer any questions you have about our process. But with that said, I will hand it over to Melissa to actually walk you through what we've built here.
Yeah, thank you, Dave. And also, just to add, this process is not finished either. So we're showing you something that we're really excited about that has incorporated feedback from all these conversations and working groups, but we expect that there's still going to be more feedback. So please continue to raise your hand, open a support ticket, even let us know how we can make this better, because we really, really value direct feedback from you all. So I just wanted to, because I know there's going to be some people on this call that might be new to Conserv. So I do want to just give like a little bit of background of some important things you might want to set up in the beginning before you jump into the analytics. So this could be review for some of you. I do want to point out the account hierarchy. So as the arrow suggests, if you select sensors and you go to hierarchy, you'll see that we have this setup here that gives you a sense of where your sensors and spaces are. We have this concept of a location, which is the one that is indented farthest to the left, and that is your building, your building proper. And then you can have spaces within those buildings, and then within those spaces you can have sensors. So that's kind of the basic setup for that. And you can go and edit that and drag and drop and kind of get the hierarchy that you would like before you really are digging deep into the analytics, because that will be helpful when you're selecting your data. Another in the background thing that I want you to be aware of is this concept of levels. So if you click setup on the left and you select this tab on the top that says levels, this is where you can see your levels that you've set up for your spaces, your unique levels that you've set up. These are essentially environmental parameters. These are goalposts for where you would like the temperature, humidity, light levels, and number of light hours per day to be. And so you can go in and you can select these and edit them, and you can make new ones. And as you can see here on this example, there is a summer and a winter level. So you can drag your spaces into a winter level when, I'm in New England and it's very dry because we heat the air over the winter. So there is a distinct winter level here versus in the summer when we're getting a lot more rain. So it can be a little bit more environmentally sustainable to be thinking about levels in that regard, because not every building can maintain that perfect set point. It's just really unrealistic. levels get translated into the analytics. I want to point this out just because it feels a little pie in the sky, not totally understanding what these levels mean until you jump into the analytics. And this is just a quick preview of what that is. So the green and the blue band on the screen are the levels superimposed over the graph. So you can see where your temperature and humidity lives within that level. And then the circles at the top, these are the key performance indicators. They tell you what percentage of time you're staying within those levels. So we actually look at every reading through the time period that you're looking at, and we calculate if anything is outside of that level that contributes to the percentage that we display in the KPI. All right, so now I want to give you a little bit of an orientation of the new dashboard. There's a lot of new, there's all these circles and different pages, and there's a lot going on here. So I just want to give you kind of a 10,000 foot view of what's going on. There are three major areas that I want you to be aware of when we're looking at the analytics. The first one is this section on the left. This is the data selection area. This is where you decide what data you want to look at. So if you want to look at like the temperature, maybe you want to pull up your light data, maybe there's like, there's specific time period, which sensors you want to look, that's where that happens in that section of the analytics. This section over here is the customized level. Really, really want to highlight this. We have heard that this sometimes gets hidden, but there's a lot to unpack in this customized feature over here. So if you click on that, this is where you will see how you can customize the graph and what you're viewing and how to view the data. So, and we'll go over this all in a second when I pull up the analytics, but just so you know, this is where you can like control the range that you want, the layout for, you want 0 to 100 for your temperature, or if you want to include certain graphs or not, this is where you control all of that. And then finally, the last view I want to point out, this is the visualizations, which is where you actually do your analysis. And there are a lot of features in here where we can collapse things and make things bigger and really do where you want to do your actual work. So those are the three areas, and that leads me to open the cloud. So I am in analytics right now, and as you mentioned, feel free to type in. And Dave, if somebody has a question in real time, I'm happy to jump in and answer that. But we will also have time at the end of this call to answer your specific questions, and I'll keep the screen open so we can walk through it. So let's see. So right now it's asking me to select a sensor and reading. I don't technically have data pulled up in the analytics view. So I do need to go in here and select the data that I want to see. So you can click here, and this will open the hierarchy that I showed you earlier. And let's say I'm very interested in understanding the data that's going on in this yellow bedroom. And I will preface this by saying that this account that I'm looking at is sensors reporting from my own home. So I am pretty aware of what's going on in here, but this yellow bedroom is actually my baby's bedroom. So I am monitoring her room. But you can click here. If there's multiple sensors in the space, you can select one here, or if you click this, it will select both of them. You can also, if you have a lot of sensors, this can be a lot of clicking. You can also, or scrolling, if you can't find the specific space that you're looking for, you can go in here and you can type the space that you're looking for, and you can then click that way. So I have the bedroom pulled up, and I'm looking at the temperature and relative humidity, and right away I am seeing some pretty massive relative humidity spikes, which is a little alarming. So I will look into that. But down here, you can see here, you can also select the dates that you want to look at. So right now, I have it set on the last 7 days, but look, I'm kind of curious how long these spikes have been going on. So I might choose, maybe I'll look at the previous week, and you can see, oh, this has been something that's consistently happening with some somewhat similar regularity. And I will also point out here that we have this ability to set your default. So there's a star here. This means that if you typically like to look at your data and, if you like to pull up the last week, you can have that set up. So anytime you come into the analytics, that's what will be default view for you, so you don't have to always select the time period that you're looking at. And you can always change that if you change. Oops, it jumped out. For some reason, I think I hit back on my computer. So I'll get the yellow bedroom open, and then I was looking at the previous week. So that's the data selection. I have everything pulled up at this point. And you can scroll over here. We have this nice crossbar, so you can see exactly what the relative humidity measurement is on the right, what this little says here, and what this says over here is the temperature reading. I'll also point out that we have now collapsed all of the different analysis into one graph. So if if you are interested in looking at your illuminance data at the same time, it will show up all in the same graph. So there's not as much scrolling if you've experienced that in our last version of the analytics. All right, so now I want to customize this graph a little bit more. I mentioned this before. You can pull up in this customize menu here, and I'll just go through a few of these. We have this ability to show dots. This is what will show, this will visualize the actual readings that we have from the data. So whether that's an imported data or a Conserv sensor, these little dots will show up on the screen. You can click and drag, and that will zoom into the data, and you can see, and you can hover over. This was a time that the sensor actually took a reading. And you can see here, I have some gaps, and maybe that has to do with like a connectivity issue. But this is a way to see how you're doing in terms of data collection and identifying particular readings. So I'm going to turn that off. They have the ability to show levels. So right now it's on hover. And this is what I was talking about before with the levels. So on hover means if I hover over a certain data set or variable, it will show me the level associated with that. But you can decide if you want to keep that as, I don't ever want to look at my levels, or maybe I always want them on. This is my preference personally. It's a nice way to quickly assess how well you're staying within your levels. And if maybe your levels are a little unrealistic too. So this can be a really useful tool to jump back in and see if this really makes sense for that space. This is something that migrated over from our older analytics, the ability to aggregate data. We got a lot of feedback that people like to do that. That can be useful if you want to view data in a very distinct period of time. Maybe you only want to look at an hourly data set. I've heard some interesting reasons for why people might want to do this. From a conservation standpoint, I always loved this example. Certain objects are not going to experience fluctuation at the same rate as others. So if you have an hourly aggregation, that might be more reflective of something that's not going to respond to the environment as quickly as maybe a piece of vellum that, that's going to change if you just even breathe near it. It's going to move a little bit. So, and I know there's some other reasons for using aggregation, but that feature is there. I'm going to turn that off too. I'm going to talk about these in a second, but I did want to point out down here, we have the ability to set up your scale. So I personally like to keep things pretty consistent, especially if I'm looking at multiple data sets and I'm going to be creating reports and I might compare those reports. I personally think it's a good idea to keep the scale consistent, because if you do have like a smaller scale in one version and a larger one, it can make fluctuations seem a lot larger or not large. So you're not really comparing apples to apples. So it's nice to set these up when you are initially starting. And what will happen is once you set these up the way you like it, when you leave and come back, they will stay. Some people like to do auto scale. I know that can be useful. For me, I have a freezer sensor, and sometimes I'm not sure exactly what the temperature is. And so I might choose auto scale to just define the data if it's below the original scale that I've set up. But then once I'm there, I might pick a particular scale that's consistent with how I'm viewing everything else. So that's the layout. Then we have these metrics, and I will point out, you might recognize this little crown. That indicates that it is a pro feature. That is something new that we have integrated into the new analytics. We do have some distinct features that are pro, and that those are available for any of our paying customers. There's some information on how to upgrade to Pro if you're not a paying customer. But we do have this Pro features turned on for everyone for a reverse trial from now until the end of May. So this is a chance to experience with the Pro features and decide if it's something that you really want to invest in or not. So the Pro features here are, we can show preservation metrics. I'm going to click out of here just to show them to you. So these are the KPIs that I discussed earlier, the key performance indicators. They tell you what percentage of time you're staying within the levels. This is the actual range. And then we also have a fluctuation metric that evaluates, for my fluctuation, I said that I wanted to have no fluctuations greater than 4 degrees within 24 hours, and or 3. This says 3 actually. So it's saying that that's actually maybe not a reasonable metric for that space, at least in my home that doesn't have centralized air conditioning or environmental control. But that tells you that it was only within that range 5% of the time. And then we also have some preservation metrics that were developed by the Image Permanence Institute. This is the time-weighted preservation index. You can read in the mold risk index, you can read about these if you'd like. There's some articles that dig deep into them, but they are useful metrics to identify just at a glance if you have a risk for mold, or if your preservation environment is good, or if there might be some things you can work on. But it is useful to kind of share with stakeholders or just get a general sense of the space. Also under here, we have the ability to show the data summary. And this is the minimum, maximum, average, and standard deviation of all of the data that you have pulled up on the screen. So looking at this here, we have these big RH fluctuations. So the lowest percentage of RH I have in this data set is 24. The average is about 42. The maximum is 80.8. That does seem a little alarming. And then the standard deviation, which is really the distance from the mean to the first, forgetting the word. It is a statistical that tells you the distance of your data and how much it's dispersed across your data set. And maybe Dave can type in the chat what that word is I'm looking for, or somebody else. And so those are the metrics. And then we also have this new feature called the fluctuation chart. It's somewhat similar to what we had in our old analytics. That one was a bar graph. This is a linear graph, which I really appreciate. And essentially, sorry, I was just reading the chat. So the 24-hour fluctuations is a linear graph that shows you the greatest fluctuation that happens in the previous 24 hours. And this is aligned to the graph above. It's the same timeline on the x-axis. And you can see these are big fluctuations, but sometimes when we have a loan requirement that says we don't want any fluctuations above a certain amount in the last 24 hours, it can be kind of difficult to assess the fluctuation, the distance between the fluctuation and the time in one view on this graph. So what this does, to get a little mathy, is when I'm looking at this particular date, as I'm hovering over the graph, it is looking at the data from the previous 24 hours, and it's calculating the highest value and the lowest value. And the difference of that is what is graphed on the screen here. So, and we have these dotted lines, which are the levels that we set up. So this dotted line here, this red, says that I don't want the fluctuations in temperature to be above 3 degrees in 24 hours. And I can look here, there were some instances where we had fluctuations greater than 3 degrees. So that can be a nice way to quickly assess if you are meeting those parameters or not. All right, so now to kind of dig back into the analysis a little bit more, I don't necessarily need to look at all of these metrics and there's a lot of chart gunk on here, and I just really want to dig into the data a little bit. So I'm going to collapse these if I want, and that will then make this screen a lot bigger, which is helpful. I'll also point out that you can click here and We have this option now to view it in a full screen or download a PNG or a JPEG file. I know a number of people have reached out that say they do screenshots and put them into their own Microsoft Word document to create their own report. So hopefully this will make that simpler for people, depending on what you need these graphs for. But I'm looking at this data now and I'm trying to understand what's going on with this fluctuation. Why is it happening? The first thing that I might do would be to look at what the weather is doing outside. So what this weather function is doing is it's taking the location address. When you're creating your hierarchy at the beginning, it asks for your address for your location. It's taking that address and it's looking for the nearest weather stations, and it's graphing the data that we have for the exterior weather. So what the humidity and the temperature was historically during that time. There does seem to be a pretty strong correlation here with the humidity, but I'm not totally convinced that's what's going on. This is a pretty drastic jump, and there was a pretty big jump in humidity right here, and the humidity seems pretty stable. And same with the humidity going up on these dates, and my humidity was pretty stable at that time. So I'm not totally convinced this is related to the outdoor humidity. One other feature that's new that I'm very excited about, this is also a pro feature, is precipitation levels. We have historic data of when it's rained in your area, and you can now visualize that on the graph as well. So you can see here, if I hover over this graph, it will say that there was 0.02 inches on that day. I will also point out you can change the metrics if you don't like inches. We have it in your personal settings. I can talk about that at the end if that's helpful for people. But I can see it rained a little bit on this date. It rained quite a bit on that date. That makes sense why the humidity outside is also spiking at that time. But there are also still some times where the humidity is spiking and there's no rain, and it's not. I'm not totally convinced that's what's going on here. So let me turn that off. And something I might do at this point in time is to look at what's going on in a different space that's nearby. Do they have the same, are they experiencing the same thing? So I do have another sensor that's in the room next door. And I don't need to be looking at the temperature data. I'm really just kind of focusing on the humidity. I can turn that off here. We also have this ability to just quickly uncheck some of these things down here. They're still technically selected over here, but just for a quick analysis, you can turn the data on and off directly in the graph here. So now that I'm looking at this, this is becoming a little bit more obvious that something is going on in this space that's distinct to the dew point temperature or absolute humidity in that space, just because the humidity is just really doing something wild compared to this other one. I might look at the time. So I can hover over here and I can see that this humidity spike is happening around 7 p.m. my time. It says 1923. Same thing on the next night around the same time. It does seem to be pretty cyclical with the day. Yeah, 7:30 at this night as well. And yeah, so what's happening in my child's bedroom around 7:30 p.m. every night? I am getting her ready for bed and we turn on our humidifier. So that's what's happening. These are humidifier. This is us turning on the humidifier for her space while she sleeps. It's getting a little bit too humid in our space personally, so I definitely want to look at that. But now that I know that and I did all this analysis, it might be helpful to create an observation. So I can right click on the graph right here. I'll create an observation. This is humidifier being turned on overnight. I spelled humidifier wrong. And the scope, we're required to choose the scope. That's, if this is an observation that applies to the entire location, all the sensors in my building, then I would choose this. But that is not the case. We have evaluated a couple other sensors. It seems to be something else. This is for a specific space. So I will identify that as the yellow bedroom. And it started at the time that I right-clicked, so on the 1st of March. and then it's going through the 5th of March. So you can choose a specific time, or you can just kind of choose that for your own reference. But now I can save that observation, and it will show up down here that I've kind of done the analysis. I know what's going on with these humidification spikes, and I might reach out to my facilities department, which is my husband, who happens to be a facilities manager. So I will actually share this graph with him. But you can, in order to create a graph, let's see, I'm going to get all of the data on this, sorry, a report. I'm going to get all the data on the screen that I want to include in that report. So right now, the living room data is in here. I don't need that. I do want my observations. This is a good date to have in my report, the last week, because it shows all of these different humidity spikes. I don't mind including all of this. It's still helpful to share with him, but if I wanted to not, like, say, for example, I didn't want to have the data summary, I could deselect that. But I will, for the sake of this presentation, just keep everything in the chart. And then once it's exactly the way I want it to generate a report, I will go here and click Create Report. And now you will see we have two options. I can create one right now, and I can name it, and it will email it to me, or I can set up a scheduled recurring delivery. And what that means is you name the report, you choose a start date. Maybe I want it to start on Monday next week, and I want it to happen every week, or maybe I want to have it happen every month. But then once you select your start date and frequency, you can choose who you want. This is my husband, so I can show it to him, and it can come every week to his inbox as well. I did generate a report before this webinar just to show you what it looks like. I have it pulled up. But it's a PDF file. It shows the start and end date that I chose. It has the data that I had selected. So I wanted the temperature and humidity selected. So that's there. And it has the 24-hour fluctuation. I don't know why it did that. Okay. The 24-hour fluctuation. When I'm scrolling, it's just not looking like a typical PDF, but I'm getting to the second and third page now. And this is the second page. It's showing that observation that I just made. And then I did have data summary turned on, so that's included as well. And also the preservation metrics are also included down here. So that's the PDF that I would get in my email, whether it's a one-time report or a scheduled report. But just jumping back, let's say you did set up a scheduled report and you want to change something about it, or you want to add somebody else to it. You want to manage your scheduled reports. I want to point out that we have this section under here called reports. We have some other reports. These ones existed before, but we have this new section here called scheduled reports. And this is where you manage your scheduled reports. So you can see here, I have a weekly report turned on. It was started on the 6th of February. It's a weekly report on Mondays. I'm the one that receives it, and it's active. I can turn it off. I can delete it if I want. I can also click here and add other recipients to that report. But this is where you manage your scheduled reports. And I know this can be really helpful for people that just kind of want to get a glimpse of what's going on, but don't necessarily want to be into the software every day, just kind of want to have a sense of what's going on in their spaces. This is delivered right to your inbox. So I do think I have covered all of the demo, so I'm happy to jump into questions if we have them.
Thanks, Melissa. We've got a couple of questions about the reports. I was just typing out an answer to Laura, but we might as well start talking about them out loud. So Laura asked, can you keep those same settings and create that same report for a multitude of spaces?
Not currently. Dave, do you want to answer that?
Yeah, so there's a couple of things you can do. So like Melissa mentioned, anything that you put on the graph will be it will then be translated into the report. So if you want to have multiple sensors on the graph at once, you can create a report with multiple sensors. You can also, if this is a sort of a recurring job that you're doing, you can set up those schedules. And so if you need for example, a report for 10 individual sensors and you want them as individual reports and you do that every month, you could set up 10 monthly scheduled deliveries and it will generate, for example, a report for each of those sensors for the previous month's data. So those are really the two ways to do it today. If you're sort of thinking about it more like a template, like you want to use a bucket of sensors or something like that, we do have some functionality that's coming fairly soon that will make that easier as well.
Okay, so I see there's questions in the chat. Are they going into the Q&A? If you don't mind putting them in the Q&A so we can keep track of them, but we will try to answer the ones that we have in the chat first.
Yeah. I will, let me tackle Elizabeth's question next because I think it relates somewhat to what I just said. So Elizabeth asked if I generate monthly reports and when I select the last month time period, is the report that generated, does that go from the first of the previous month to the first of the current month? Is there any way to get a true monthly report that would only show data for the month? I've tried the custom range and I get the same result. So we can definitely look at this. I think, Elizabeth, you are using last month in the way that it's intended. So the idea of last month, and if Melissa brings that up, this shows this. It should give you the last calendar month. So because we're in March, it shows all of February, and when we're in April, it would show all of March. So you are using it as designed. If you want to set up a monthly recurring report to report on data from the preceding month, then you would use that last month time period.
I'm not 100% sure that works that way. We can look into that, but
okay.
All
right, let's keep going with the questions. So Casey asks, is it possible to create an on-demand PDF report rather than it being emailed? I regularly talk back to the old analytics to use the PDF reporting function. Yes, this we've definitely heard this a couple of times. So we're looking into this. The reason we moved to the email delivery model is that sometimes people like to do really, really big reports, and then that can kind of strain the system a little bit. When you're rendering something in the browser, the browser can sometimes time out. And so if we're processing something behind the scenes, we can let it run for as long as it sort of needs to get the job done. So that's why we moved to the email model. But we do kind of understand that people sometimes want to see what the report looks like, before doing something, or just kind of working through multiple reports and just want to, wait and then download them as they're available. So we're definitely looking at that. That's a pretty common piece of feedback that we've heard. So Samantha asked, will this update change anything in IPM Analyze? Not currently, but that's definitely on the roadmap. Definitely the IPM Analytics. We have lots of ideas for improvements there, and so now we're through this. That is certainly on the agenda. All right. So we've got some questions in the Q&A as well. I'm gonna accept these. Let's see. Okay. So Beth asked, I often import hobo data so I can use the reporting function. These are one-time use situations. The sensor page can get very messy with these uploads. Can you go over how to clean those up, e.g. easily delete imported sensor data to keep this page under control. Okay, so there is a way to delete sensors that you don't need anymore. This is what's called a soft delete. So when you delete this sensor, what it actually does is it moves it to sort of an inactive status. So you can always go and find it and restore it later. But that does allow you to clean up your list if you're kind of doing that one-time use type thing. Let's see. Okay. So somebody asked, I use the weather data function frequently in my charts. Are there any plans to be able to export weather data with logger data? So if you graph the weather data and then generate a report, the report will include the weather data there. We don't currently have an export feature for the weather data directly. Part of that is because we use a third party, like a company that collates all that weather data on our behalf. And they have terms of use and so on. They don't want people sort of taking all of their data and then providing it to others. So we have to be a little bit careful about how we use their data. We can definitely look into to that, but right now the way to do that would be to generate a report with the weather data in it. Okay, and then we've got the create report button has a crown mark for premium features. Does that mean all reports are now part of the paid tier and only images will be available to free tier users? Melissa, I think that's correct, if I'm not mistaken.
The weather, sorry, I was just the question.
The reports will be a pro tier feature.
Yes.
But like you mentioned, you can always download. Actually, Melissa, did you show this? You can also download images of each piece, and that's going to be free. So you can always output the graph regardless of the tier that you're on.
Here you go.
Okay. We've got another question from Jennifer. I've been using the scheduled reports, but I was wondering if there's a way to include multiple spaces in one report. For example, I'd like to see the data and graph for each gallery in one PDF, but I've only figured out how to do one gallery at a time. So yes, you can graph multiple things at once. It will be in a single consolidated graph. So Jennifer, what I'm assuming you're asking here is, can I have like multiple graphs, a graph for sensor 1, a graph for sensor 2 in the same report? And we don't offer that currently in this version.
I wonder, Jennifer, maybe clarify, but I'm wondering if Jennifer's asking, because like if I generated a report right now with multiple sensors, I can select a bunch of sensors and I can generate a report, and that will include all of the data. It will include the time period that I selected, any observations. The one thing it will not include, which I'm wondering if what Jennifer's asking, is we don't calculate data summaries and preservation metrics and all of these pro features once more than one sensor is selected and more than a year of data is selected. So it will be a little bit more of a basic report, but it will have any observations that you've recorded and all of the spaces that you've selected. But if we hear enough people asking for something like that, then there might be a need for a different type of report. We've discussed that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we do also have our standard reports, and some of those are designed to be a little bit more, like show me all the data for all these different spaces, and we, as part of building the reports feature for analytics, we built it to allow us to come up with new different variations of reports in the future. So yeah, if you have particular kinds of reports you're looking to do, definitely share those with us, and we can take a look at how easy they would be to build as a report type.
Yeah, the space performance report is designed specifically to help you compare a lot of different spaces and to look at the key performance indicators for those spaces. So it might be a separate report if you're trying to do that kind of analysis of the KPIs and of multiple spaces. You can do it in this report view. Okay.
All right.
All right. I'm not, am I seeing? Okay. Okay. Laura's saying, I'm looking for the same thing, creating a report and then being able to receive it for a bunch of spaces.
Got it. Okay. That's helpful.
I mean, since we are doing it in the back end, maybe that is something we can
Mm-hmm.
have multiple safe spaces selected. Do you want these to generate these as multiple reports?
Okay. I saw somebody raise their hand. If you're welcome to ask a question if you like, or put it in the Q&A.
If you message something in the chat, we're not seeing it. Please put it in the Q&A because it's hard to scroll.
I think we have answered all of the main questions. If we've missed your question, definitely please shout. Okay. All right. Looks like we may have reached the end of folks' questions here. Definitely, if you have other questions or thoughts or feedback, please let us know. Well, we've got one more question from Laura. Please mention how we can level up to the Pro tier. So, like Melissa mentioned, right now there is no upgrading that needs to be done. Everyone has access to the Pro tier features until the end of May. Once we are through that, if you're on the free tier today, you'll basically be able to click through on any of the features that are marked as Pro, and that will just take you to a checkout page, and you can upgrade then through kind of typical kind of payment methods, ACH or a credit card or something like that. So that you'll be able to do it directly in the app. So essentially, if you try and use something that is a Pro feature, it'll prompt you and walk you through the process at that point.
Yeah, and keep an eye out on your emails because we might offer some. If you are eager to convert before the end of the free trial, there might be some opportunities to do that with us, at a special rate. So keep your eyes peeled for that.
And then Wilma asked, is there a free comments box in the reports? Not currently. We did talk about that at the time that we developed the reports. I think that's certainly something we're interested in adding. And so kind of more to come on that front.
Amazing. Well, we're really impressed with the amount of people that showed up. Everyone's really invested in this, and we've spent a lot of time, so it feels good to have people invested in this. And we're really excited about the direction this is going. And there's a lot of interesting things coming up in the roadmap. So, be checking with regularity. You'll see some new features pop up, but please continue to raise your hand if you have feedback or there's a feature that you'd like, or something's not working exactly the way you'd expected. It's just really helpful for us to continue to hear that from you all as we continue to iterate and move forward all of this. So thank you so much for your time today. Anything else you want to say, Dave?
No, I'll say, we'll hang out a little bit longer. So, if you do have any final questions, feel free to keep posting those in. We'll stick around until the hour. But other than that, thank you everyone for your time, and please keep in touch if there's anything else we can do to make the experience better for you. All right, thank you everyone.
I think we can wrap things up now. It doesn't seem like.
Yeah,
All
sounds
right.
good.
Thank you.
Right, thank you everyone.